The only way to compete for and take market share is to be proactive. You cannot react your way to market share growth. You know, a rising tide lifts all ships, sinking tide sinks all ships, and you're just moving with the current. And that is 95% of all companies and 95% of all salespeople. And that's actually good news because it means that it's really easy to stand out.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. This is John Chance. My guest today is Alex Goldfayn. He's a three-time Wall Street Journal bestselling author, one of the most sought-after sales speakers in the world. He's the CEO of the Revenue Growth Consultancy, one of the top grossing solo consulting firms in America, generating $7.5 million annually. His clients, primarily B2B organizations, implement simple, proactive actions that drive 15 to 30% sales growth every year. And we're going to talk about his latest book, Outgrow, how to expand market share and outsell your competition. So welcome to the show, Alex.
Hi, John. Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
I want to unpack one of the core themes of the book. You talk about transforming reactive companies into proactive ones. So tell me a little bit about that thinking.
Well, I think, over 415 clients over about 22 years that I've done these Outgrow revenue growth initiatives with, what I've realized is about 95% of all companies and also 95% of all salespeople are generally reactive, meaning we take what's incoming. And when you take what's incoming, and most companies that have been around and that have some history are very good at this, like world class, right? When I arrive at an organization, usually they are world class at this reactive work, which is basically customer service work. Well, the only way to really grow in terms of volume growth, not inflationary growth, not acquisitive growth, but organic volume sales growth. The only way to do that is we have to take market share. We have to take business from another company that already has the business. And the only way to compete for and take market share is to be proactive. You cannot react your way to market share growth. You can't do it. When you're reactive, a rising tide lifts all ships, sinking tide sinks all ships, and you're just moving with the current. You go where the economy takes you. And that is 95% of all companies and 95% of all salespeople. And that's actually good news because it means that it's really easy to stand out in that crowd. It's really easy to do better. And as a result, it's really easy, John, to grow.
Yeah. And, in this particular moment in time, starting the third quarter of 2025, as we record this, I'm seeing a lot of companies that it's even worse because they're not, even if they're unhappy right now, they're like not reaching out because there's a lot of uncertainty. And it's like, I'm just going to stay put. So, I would suggest that your proactive is probably even more necessary because there's probably less incoming right now.
Not only is it more necessary, it works better now because of exactly what you said. Because literally nobody's reaching out now. So Outgrow proactivity works really well in good economies because people have money to spend and we can go to them and say, hey, what are you spending your money on? May I help you with that? I'd love an opportunity to help. But in a bad economy, John, because of exactly what you said, people sit around and, your competition is like, I'm not going to call them now, especially now. I'm not going to pitch them, for more products or more services now in this economy. I'm telling you, when you call a customer and say, I was thinking about you, how's your family? What are you working on that I can help you with? Or perhaps, what are you doing with my competition that I can help you with? And this is somebody this is somebody you have a nice relationship with. When you call somebody like that, John, you are the only one in that person's life doing that. Nobody else is doing it, especially now. So talk about standing out from the crowd and how easy it is. Just show up. Because nobody is.
I think I know the answer to this, but tell me a little bit about the term outgrow. What are you trying to project with that?
Yeah, well, we want to outgrow the market. We want to outgrow the competition. We want to outgrow the average. We want to outgrow the company's own history year to year, in terms of growth. And again, the way to do that is through taking market share. And the way to take market share is to be proactive.
So looping a little bit back to one of your very first things, I was saying that 90% of the folks just wait around. I mean, is that another way of saying that 90% of salespeople are lazy?
No, it's another way of saying that 90 or 95% of salespeople have tremendous discomfort and fear with communicating with customers and prospects when nothing is wrong, which is my definition of proactivity. If somebody says, well, what do you mean by proactive? I mean, when nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
When the price isn't going up, which is when salespeople call. When you need the payment, which is when customers hear from salespeople. When you can't get them the order on time, which is when customers hear from salespeople, right? People only hear from people when something rises to the level of urgency to make the call.
Yeah.
And so this communication, this proactive communication, is when nothing is wrong. So that's my definition of proactivity. And it's not laziness, it's intense and severe discomfort with bothering the customer, annoying the customer, taking their time, and probably hovering above all of that, even higher, is discomfort and fear of rejection. Fear of rejection. If I call them about this other offering, they might tell me no into my ear hole. And that's an intense personal rejection, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. We humans, and you and I are too, we will do anything possible to avoid that kind of rejection, including going out and asking for the business.
Yeah. Back when I was just getting started, I had a routine on Fridays. I would just pick up the phone and call 5 people. I was not trying to sell anything. I was not trying to do anything. And I can't tell you, I used to laugh. In fact, I wrote a big blog post about this, that about half the time, 1 or 2 of those phone calls would start with, "Oh, I was just meaning to call you."
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, okay, get out my order pad. It's amazing.
That's it. When you show up when nothing is wrong, you are saving the customer from having to think about it again. Whatever's in their head, whatever the need might be. If you don't call them, like you just shared, they're going to have to think about it more, probably repeatedly, because once usually doesn't do it. You don't think about something and then do it, typically. You think about something many times, and then you might do it, but you might not.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly valuable to do what you just described. And that's why my clients, and I've had tens of thousands of salespeople go through this and run these processes that we're talking about. We constantly hear from people, while I have you, or I'm so glad you called. Can you please check on this for me? Product, service, whatever it is.
Yeah. So would you say that this is just this is a habit, this is a system, or is it cultural in an organization, or is it all the above?
Yeah, you need both. So I say that Outgrow is 2/3 mindset work because, behavior always follows thinking, and we can't outsell our mindset. So if we think we're bothering the customer, we're going to sell accordingly. But if we think it's our obligation to help the customer and they want our help because they're better off with us than with the competition, who isn't as good as us, then we sell that way. We sell as though we have a lot more value for the customer. So it's 2/3 mindset work. In Outgrow, we have an acronym called COPE, John. COPE: confidence, optimism, positivity, and enthusiasm.
I like it.
And we need those mindsets because we have to bring them to the salespeople that we work with. We have to bring them to the organization. So culturally, an Outgrow organization that runs Outgrow becomes more COPE, becomes more confident, more optimistic, more positive, more enthusiastic. And when you are those things, much easier to make proactive calls, to offer additional products, to follow up on quotes and proposals, and to ask people what else.
How ready does a person using this system need to be for, if I start with a call with, I just want to see if there's anything I could help you with. I sell widgets, but the guy tells me, you know what? We just fired our accounting firm. We're really screwed. How prepared do I have to be to say, you know what? I think I can help you with somebody. Unrelated to me. I'm not going to make any money off of this, but I think I can help you. I mean, how prepared or how much of your system do you think, relies on just being the person who solves problems?
I think people just want to help people. I think And I also think our starting position is people just want to be helped. You know, you're calling your customers, your prospects. People just want to be helped. That's starting point number one. Then when we are showing up, we are simply offering to help people, which is what they want. You know, John, over 100 million Outgrow actions logged, tracked, and analyzed over 23 years by over 400 clients. So we log our activities and then we see the, with the responses, the results, the outcomes. Not one time, not once, has any customer ever said, I'd rather you not make my life easier today. Hasn't happened once. People just want to be helped. So if you're calling to sell a product and somebody has a need that you don't provide, well, then try to help them. Common sense, human relationship stuff. In fact, I would argue that already happens. If you're watching this right now, how many times has one of your customers asked you for something that you don't offer them and you went and found a way to get it for them? Maybe you connected them to your competition even. Yeah. Maybe you went to your competition and got what they needed for them. Yeah. That happens all the time. And when you do that, the customer remembers it forever.
Once I've got that trust, I want to keep it. And I keep it by just not allowing them to call anybody else, right? I'm the only one that they would call regardless of what their problem is. And it takes a little extra work sometimes, your stuff you're not going to get paid for directly, but as you've seen in your research, it pays off time and time again. Speaking of research, how would a company set up measuring this? Because you might make 10 of those calls and nothing really happens today. So now the salesperson's like, that's not really paying off. So, is there a way to measure? You talk about them actions. I think that's what you called them.
Yeah. Outgrow actions.
These actions, is there a way to then turn them into a system of KPIs, so to speak, that, that do kind of motivate people to say, oh, this worked?
Yeah. So in the book, there are scorecards and metrics that we use all over it, examples. And I don't know if you can see our video right now, you can see a couple baseball bats behind me, and we call it swinging the bat. So we don't track the hits in Outgrow, we track the swing because we know what the batting averages are. So we are simply asking Outgrow participants, who we call outgrowers. We are asking this. These are people who face customers for you. We're asking them to try to take our actions, because we know, in baseball, you can hit the ball exactly right, dead on, and it flies right at a defender and it's an out. And sales is the same way. You can do everything right and hit the ball perfectly. And then, getting the win is largely out of our control. You can't really control if the customer's in a good mood. You can't really control if the customer has an itch when you're calling to scratch. I can control making my call, but I can't control if they need it in that moment. I can't control the timing. The other thing we know is we need 8 or 9 no's for every yes that we get in sales. If you win 10 to 20% of the time in sales, you're one of the best. In baseball, you can fail 70% of the time and go to the Hall of Fame. In our work, we fail more than that.
I don't know. As good as pitching is these days, Alex, I'm going to say it's 7.5 times now.
I know it's dropping, isn't it? These days, 250 is a good batting average, right? In baseball. We're both baseball fans. We were chatting about that before we started our conversation here. Anyway, we do track the efforts because we know what the success rates are. I'll give you an example. We have a technique called the did you know question. And we have another technique called the reverse did you know question. Both of these are detailed in the book. So the did you know question, or DYK, did you know, is you suggesting an additional product or service to your customer that they don't already buy from you. They probably buy it somewhere else. They probably need it. They probably buy it from your competition, service or product. And so what we know statistically is that 20% of those close. 20% become a new line item. So if I say to you, hey, John, did you know I do keynote speeches? What about longer workshops? How about one-on-one coaching? Of course, I work with organizations. If I ask you 5 of those, and it's going to take me 20 seconds, maybe, one will close and turn into a new line for us to work on. And so let's say somebody listening to us has 10 salespeople. And each one of those 10 asks 5 did you know questions. And they're tracked. We do enter them into a system. We have an Outgrow tracking form. It's a simple web form. You enter it in. And at the end of the week, you get data back from us. we send the data back to you. It's all automated. 10 people ask 5 did you know questions a day. That's 50 a day. 250 a week, 1,000 a month, 12,000 a year, if my math is right. That's top of my head. 12,000 did you know questions a year if we can get 10 people to give us 20 seconds a day. 20% of 12,000, that's the success rate, is 2,400 new line items. That's a fact. It's not, I hope they'll add 2,400 new line items. If they can get 5 did you know questions in 20 seconds from 10 people a day, every day, that's where the complexity comes. That's the hard part. Not asking the did you knows, it's the choreography. It's doing it all the time, every day. They will get 2,400 new line items. Then the question becomes, how much money per line item? And how many times a year will that new thing be purchased? Because many people sell things repeatedly. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, it could be twice a year. You do the math, almost always 5 did you know questions a day gets you to millions of dollars in new revenue. As a fact, statistically, for sure, if you can get 5 did you know questions a day.
And I bet you every salesperson listening has had an experience where they walked into a client's office and the client said, "Oh yeah, we just did this new thing over here." And then they said, "Oh, did you know that we do that?" Right.
And then you know what you hear is you do that? I didn't know you did that.
Right.
And you're like, dude, I just told you that I do that like 2 weeks ago. I know it was you because we were talking to each other just like we are now. And you had the exact same reaction 2 weeks ago. I didn't know you did that. Now I'm telling you again 2 weeks later, you still don't know. So the takeaway for us salespeople is just because you tell somebody something doesn't mean they know. It means you told them, doesn't mean it registered, doesn't mean they remember.
So this is a good segue to non-sales department folks, right? I mean, how can they contribute to this kind of proactive sales culture? Sounds like they could be asking did you knows.
100%. I mean, we're constantly working with customer service people, managers, frontline people. What it develops, clients have called it a non-traditional sales force. Even people like project managers, if you're in construction, client execs, engineers and architects who are like, I didn't become an engineer to be a used car salesman, Alex. Thanks, dude, but that's not for me. And again, mindset work. You're not selling, you're helping. People need more help from you. So yes, it is for anybody who faces customers, John, who can ask a did you know question or two. On the calls even that are incoming, proactive calls are a big part of our work. But if they come to you, if you have a counter operation or a sales floor of some kind, or if you're just customer service picking up the phone all day, you can say, do you need this? How are you on that? We just got some of this in, and ask your did you knows.
Yeah. So does that need to be in an SOP somewhere so that everybody's trained on it? Or is it more of a look for moments of truth?
It's more change the mindset, make them confident and optimistic and positive and enthusiastic, and then say to them, please ask 5 a day, because that's what we're doing now. It does, it's warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Above all, it's positive work because we're helping customers more. But it needs tracking and accountability, or else it stops. It doesn't keep going, it stops.
So how do you get this ingrained into an organization? Because I'm guessing, they can come to one of Alex's amazing workshops, get all the good ideas, and then go back to the shop. And it's like, we do it for a week. I mean, and how do you make it a habit?
Well, and you just said the key word, habit.
Yeah.
We say outgrow is sales doing, not sales training. Because as you just said, sales training don't grow revenue. Sales training tells people stuff probably that they already know.
Yeah.
And then they go back to their reactive life. And, in sales, we have to do things to make money. We can't know stuff. We have to do stuff to make money.
Yeah.
There are some professions that can make money by knowing things. We're not one of them. We have to do stuff that we know. So, we engage with clients for typically 3 to 5 years, John. And so we have a launch year where the work begins. It takes us about 90 days to create their proactive program. Then we teach it. It's a 1-day workshop typically, just for that client, just for that client's people. It's not open. It's just theirs. It's a private engagement. And then they begin this weekly cadence of the leader of the effort literally asks for or prescribes some target actions for the week. For example, this week, please give me 5 proactive phone calls to people that you haven't talked to in 6 months or more. That's specific. 5 did you know questions and 5 quote follow-ups. It's 3 sets of actions, 15 things for the week. Then people go do it. Step 2. Step 3 is they log it into our system. Step 4 is we put out data and we show them the scorecard. Just tracking efforts. Who tried and who didn't? Who cares and who doesn't? And then we put out success stories. We put out wins. We tell the wins. We tell the success stories in the words of the people who submitted them. That's 5-step sort of feedback loop that happens every week. Next week, they make a new assignment of actions. At 30, 60, and 90 days, we visit with them and do web meetings to review the data, to tell success stories to the group verbally. People actually speak their stories to each other, ask each other questions. Then we follow up with them in the next 6 months as well. So in over a 9-month period in the launch year, we are with them 7 times. But nobody cares what the consultant wants. The salespeople don't care what the outside advisor wants. They only care what their leadership wants. People only do what they think is important to their boss. So this work, as much as anything, is about we coach the leaders. The leaders then have to do the accountability and the implementation and the buy-in work and the maintaining of energy with the people who are taking the swings and doing the outgrow work.
That getting them telling stories to each other, that sort of peer pressure almost that puts on is probably a really powerful aspect.
It does a few things, and all the research shows, John, that recognition is a more effective tool to make change with, to change behavior with than money is. Recognition is more powerful than giving somebody some money in private. The reason is that 1, the person feels proud. They're being recognized. They get to tell their story. 2, other people, it makes it impossible for them to say, this doesn't work here. Because here's stories about it working here. 3, those people aspire to be recognized next. 4, and the last thing, it teaches the work. It teaches what works, right? In the words of the happy salespeople, the successful people, it's education. Peer-to-peer, not from the top down, peer-to-peer education.
That's awesome. Well, Alex, I appreciate you taking a few moments to drop by the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. Is there anywhere you'd invite somebody to connect with you, learn about your work, obviously, learn about the book Outgrow?
Yeah, thank you, John. They can get the book on Amazon or wherever they buy books. Barnes & Noble has it. Books A Million has it. Anywhere books are sold. Actually launched as the number 2 best-selling business book in America behind only Atomic Habits. I was able to outsell everybody except for Atomic Habits, of course.
That's only been number 1 for what, like 6-7 years?
Right. It's good company, I guess. If you want to learn more about Outgrow and the revenue growth that we do, please visit runoutgrow.com. Runoutgrow.com.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you stopping by, and hopefully we'll run into you out there at Wrigley Field or something.
Thank you so much for having me. Go Cubs. I appreciate that.